Telling the truth about reliability is the fastest way to get yourself in trouble in the gun world. I've had buddies cut me off, range owners roll their eyes, and more than once I've watched a so-called unbreakable legend jam in front of everyone, usually right after a sales pitch. Most shooters lie to themselves about what's actually reliable. It's pride, or maybe it's fear of admitting they got burned and overpaid for something that failed them when nobody was watching. But if you actually want to know which handguns earned real trust in 2025, what survived the worst, what kept running after the hype died, you're about to find out. I kept score the hard way this year, and every pistol that made this list paid its dues in sweat, neglect, and more than a little regret. Forget the blogs, forget the hype. By the end of this, you'll know exactly which handguns I'd bet my life on. And if you're brave enough to face it, you might just change what you trust too. Want to talk about reliable? Most folks pass over the PX4 Storm Compact, like it's not even worth a look. Fine by me. That ugly grip, the chunk of a slide, the barrel that rotates for reasons nobody at my range can explain, doesn't matter. It's the gun that keeps ending up in the mix after everything else eats mud. I've watched it run filthy in the back corner, rain soaking the grip, cheap steel case ammo, and sweat-stained hands. No one ever brags about bringing the PX4, but they sure borrow it when their safe bet gets stubborn. This thing doesn't care if it's your first choice or your backup's backup. You load it, rack it, and it just keeps cycling. Even after the rest of the lineup is already laid out on the bench. Magazines pulled, excuses flying. It's not the gun anyone takes photos of. It's not a gun people show off. But every season, it's there when the shiny pics start choking and the blogs have moved on. Maybe that's the trick. The ones nobody notices end up doing all the work. Next up, don't get too comfortable. The next so-called bargain nearly taught me a real lesson about trust. There's a dull scar on my left hand from catching the gate latch in a storm last spring. Blood on my knuckle. Everything's slick. Truck keys lost somewhere in the mud. I remember digging around for something clean to press on it. Came up with the GX4 Carry instead. Didn't even notice it was there, jammed under a pile of receipts and old gloves. It still had half a mag, a scratch on the slide from who knows when. I never planned to use it that day. Most days, I don't plan at all. It rides along for months, half the time forgotten, bouncing in the glove box or stuffed under the seat. Never complains. Never needs a thank you. The trigger feels the same. Rain or shine, dirty or clean. When you pull, it works. I ran it later that week with the same cheap ammo and dirty mags, and it still didn't cough. If there's a story, it's just that, through breakdowns, detours, and a couple of years nobody wants to repeat, I never had to wonder if the Taurus would do its job. Funny how the most reliable thing in your life can disappear into the background. Not everything I carried this year could say the same. I did something stupid last spring. Signed up for a local match because I thought it'd be fun, brought the Dagger Compact along as nothing more than a backup. It wasn't supposed to leave the bag. Main gun choked halfway through the first run, and before I could talk myself out of it, the dagger was in my hand, cold, barely sighted in, no muscle memory, nothing. Everything feels wrong when you're on the clock and a dozen shooters are watching. Mag change fumbled, grip slick, heartbeat in my ears. I kept waiting for a hiccup or a bad feed to finish the humiliation, but every time the buzzer went, the dagger fired back. Clumsy reload, weird trigger, still cycling. It didn't care about my nerves or the pressure. I'd limped through every stage, never once clearing a malfunction. Never eating crow in front of the line. Didn't medal. Didn't walk out with bragging rights. But I didn't get laughed off the range either. Some guns bail you out when you've got no business being there, and this was one of them. Next time, I'll show up with a plan. The Dagger's got grit, but real trust is about never having to get rescued in the first place. Stopped off in South Lamar, Austin. Sun cooking the sidewalk and paperwork taking forever. Wasn't hunting for a Shadow 2 compact. Just killing time. Eyes wandering the case. One CZ looked like it had been through a war. Finish chewed up, edges worn bright. I asked the old-timer behind the counter what its story was, expecting a quick shrug. Instead, he leaned in and said, "That's our range loaner. When somebody's piece quits, that's what they run." He wasn't selling me on it, just laying it out. Red Texas mud. Reloads from every flavor, rookie hands, pro shooters, all of them. The CZ gets everything thrown at it. Always in public, always in front of a crowd. Changed a spring now and then. Cleaned it when I remember, but I've never seen it lock up. Not once, he said, almost like he was annoyed by how boring it was. Picked it up myself. Dings, scratches, still locks up tight. trigger like a machine. Standing there, I realized some guns build their reputation one witness at a time. Not every reliable pistol gets the honor of being tortured by strangers and still asked for again and again. After that day, I had to wonder what else I was underestimating. A while back, my cousin moved down here. Never shot anything bigger than a .22, and barely at that. First day out at the range, he looked nervous just holding the Echelon, hands slick. Questions about what if it jams, what if it jumps. I could have grabbed a beater or starter gun, but I handed him my Springfield instead and let him run with it. Every shot I watched closer than I ever do for myself. Not worried about dirt or the weather or fancy ammo, just whether the gun would trip him up, embarrass him, maybe cost him his nerve for good. But the Echelon never so much as flinched. No stovepipes, no weird trigger pull, not a single bite. The slide felt smooth even with his awkward grip. He swapped mags slow, ran the drill, and by the end he was grinning. No bruised hands, no ego left in the dirt. Handing off a pistol is different than trusting it for yourself. It's easy to say you believe in a gun when you're the one pulling the trigger. Seeing it make someone else feel like a pro? That's a whole different kind of reliable. Not every piece in the box earns that. Some can. P10F isn't the gun I show off or even think about much. Half the time, it's been riding under the seat for weeks. No oil, no target practice. Just forgotten in the mess of life. But every now and then, I'll need it cold. Maybe the range clock's running. Maybe something outside's got me on edge. Or maybe it's just been too long since I've done anything but drive. First mag, first shot, no time for a warm-up. No muscle memory, no one to the chamber drill. Just rack, squeeze, and hope you didn't forget something stupid the last time you put it away. That's when most guns show their mood. Sticky trigger, light strike, stovepipe, something. The P10F never flinched, not once. Cold, dirty, loaded with bargain ammo. Runs like it's mid-session. No drama, no apology. I can't say it's my favorite. I barely even talk about it, but I trust it because it saved me from my own laziness more than once. Some pistols need TLC. This one doesn't care if you remember it exists, until you do, and it's already working. Just because a gun never complains cold doesn't mean it can handle heat from both ends. The next one had to prove it could take punishment from me, and from everyone I loaned it to. Not every reliable pistol survives the crowd. Training day started normal, but by lunchtime the wind whipped up and dust was everywhere. Targets blowing sideways, grains stuck in sweat, Glocks on the table collecting grit in the slides. I almost swapped to something else, but stuck with the PDP Compact, even though I could feel dirt grinding into the magwell every time I slammed it home. 100 rounds later, the trigger went spongy. Not a stoppage, not a failure, just off. I started doubting, thinking about bailing or breaking down the pistol right there, but I kept running it. Every shot took extra effort, slide a little sluggish, but the thing never stopped. I finished the drills with hands coated in dust, mind on edge, and not a single clean mag left. But by the last box, the trigger snap came back, like something cleared out. Or maybe I just got used to fighting it. Never loved it for being smooth. Never trusted it just for working when clean. I trusted it because when everything got ugly, wind, dust, trigger turning to glue, it didn't tap out. It outlasted the problem, and so did I. Sometimes reliable means forgiving you when you bring a mess to the table. For years, the most dependable thing I owned wasn't my truck or my boots. It was the M&P Shield M2.0, wedged against my side, inside the waistband, every day. Didn't matter if it was January wind or August heat. The shield was there, leaving the same bruise on my hip from long drives and short errands alike. Reliable is the only word that fits. Most days I barely noticed it, but it never missed a beat. Long-term carry does something to your trust. You get used to the lint in the trigger pocket, the sweat shine on the slide, the holster digging in after a bad night's sleep. Familiarity sets in. Sometimes you wonder if you trust the gun because it's earned it, or just because you're lazy and don't want to change. But every dry fire, every range session, even those tense nights where your hand hovered just out of sight, it always did its job. Rain, sweat, accidental drops on the driveway, mag swaps on autopilot. Never once did I question if it'd go bang. If you've ever run a carry pistol so long you forget it's even there, you know exactly what I mean. That's the shield for me. The next pick, though, trust comes a lot harder when you're betting on something you haven't lived with for years. End of December, deep into that winter shit where you can't feel your own hands half the time. In 2025, with pockets full of metal micros and new models every week, it's still this plastic crap, the LCP II, that's never failed to fire when I needed it. No matter how cold, how rushed, or how buried under coats, it just goes bang. I've cursed at it, tried to replace it, nearly left it behind more times than I can count. Never jammed, never missed a beat. Nobody brags about trusting their life to something this small, this ugly. But every time I get caught out, main carry buried, layers in the way, frozen fingers fumbling, this is the one that's ready. No drama, no misfires, just pure reliability. I trust it not because I love it, but because it's proven, winter after winter, that when nothing else is within reach, it still delivers. That's not luck. That's earned. There's a reason the ugliest, most reliable pistol in 2025 still gets the nod over everything flashier. The kind of trust this one's built doesn't come from reputation. It comes from surviving the cold, the mess, and the days when the crowd is waiting for something to fail. There's nothing more embarrassing than a gun choking when real shooters are watching, especially when half the line's blue and nobody's there to make friends. Showed up at the range after work, just hoping to put a few rounds through my gear. Half the line was taken up by uniform, local law, end of shift, all running VP9s. Nobody talking, nobody showboating. You either keep up or you get quiet. I kept my head down and watched them work. Brass piling up, VP9S running drill after drill. Not a single hiccup, not even with gloves on. My own piece stumbled once on weak ammo, which was enough to get a look from a sergeant who's probably seen it all. That's when you understand. In this crowd, reliability isn't pride. It's your reputation. Cops don't want excitement. They want a gun that never makes them look stupid, never costs them a partner's trust. On a range full of uniforms, nobody curses the VP9. That's institutional reliability. When your job is on the line, you want boring and bulletproof. Some guns just keep your name clean, even if nobody remembers them. Not every pick on this list is meant for standing out. Some are built to never let you down in front of the people who matter most. Most guns on the table make the strong shooter stronger. The Glock 42 is different. Some days it's not about muscle or grip. It's about giving everyone a real shot, no matter what they bring to the line. Family day at the outdoor range, wind cutting across the bench, target swinging. You see it fast. Bigger pistols leave folks flinching or shaking out their hands after every magazine. No competition, just pride and nerves and a pile of missed shots. That's when the 42 shows its worth. Slide racks easy, recoil barely nudges, sights settle quick. Folks who'd almost walked away. My old man with arthritis, my sister-in-law nervous about noise, put rounds on target without a struggle. Ammo wasn't perfect, hands were shaky, but the 42 fed everything, kept firing, and didn't punish mistakes. It didn't win the day with noise or flash. It just let more people shoot better, longer, and walk away believing they could do it again. Some pistols let one person shine. This one leveled the field when it mattered. In the end, reliable means more than surviving hell. It's about making sure nobody's left out just because life or nerves got in the way, but it was unexpected from Glock. They don't make reliable pistols? The Canik TP9SFX didn't win me over with one dramatic save or last-second glory. It's the kind of gun that earns trust quietly somewhere past the 100th round, after the rest of your kit has tapped out and you realize without ceremony that you never once worried about it quitting. That's a different kind of reliability. Not the rush, but the slow build where boredom and abuse fail to find a weakness. This wasn't a match. Wasn't even supposed to be a torture test. Just one of those dragging range days that eats up your hands and your ammo stash. Sun dropping, wind biting, half the group already packing up or complaining about gear. Every familiar pistol on the table had started acting up. Mushy triggers, slides dragging, people making excuses. The Canik just kept running. I shot past the point of interest, past fatigue. Loading steel case and bargain reloads, not caring anymore. Slide still snapped. Recoil didn't soften or stiffen. Reset stayed sharp. When I finally field stripped it out of guilt, the guts looked as clean as the first box. No drama, no surprises, no heroics. Most guns start to fall short when you ask too much. There's always one, though, that refuses to give you an exit until every last round is spoken for. I couldn't understand why the Ruger RXM suddenly shot to the top of the sales charts of this month. What's the reason? Then I found I didn't trust it, not at first. New guns always get loud fans and quick critics, and most of them burn out by the next year. The RXM felt like another flavor of the month. Something made for the counter, not for the grind. But I kept seeing them everywhere. So I gave it a shot, slow and suspicious. Took it out on a long-range session, carried it on a couple errands, tossed it in the glove box for a week, just waiting for something to go wrong. It never did. No failures, no quirks, no weird grip drama or ammo nonsense. It just kept cycling, box after box, outing after outing. There was never a moment when trust happened, just a long, slow fade of my own doubt. 1 week turned into 3. Suddenly it was my first grab for early mornings or late drives without even thinking. Never loved it, never bragged about it, but never questioned it either. Now I understood why people are buying when reliability is the nation. Still, even after the RXM earned its keep, there are a few handguns that never make the headline. But when everything else is gone, they're the ones I keep closest. Springfield Hellcat Pro is in constant rotation. Passed between hands, grabbed for quick runs, stashed wherever it's legal. Most guns start to show cracks when they're this common, but the Hellcat Pro hasn't slipped, not once. I've watched them shot dirty, dropped in gravel, fed the cheapest ammo, run all day, then ignored until needed again. Never had to pull someone aside and say, watch out for that one. No quiet horror stories, no after-hours repairs, no drama. When a gun gets this much everyday use, reputation usually catches up fast. But with the Hellcat Pro, it just never happens. It stays invisible, does the job, and never gives you a reason to doubt. Sometimes reliability isn't about surviving one bad day. It's surviving every single boring, forgettable day, and still being the one nobody ever has to apologize for. The SIG P365 X Macro started out as just a backup for me. Easy to forget, nothing expected of it except filling space when my main carry was down. But backups don't get to hide when the real world throws a wrench. 1 week, everything else was benched. Holster cracked, main ride in the safe. No time to overthink it. The X Macro stepped up, suddenly carrying every task I'd usually hand off to a bigger, more trusted piece. I ran it hard. Daily carry, full range days, bad ammo, rush jobs, drills that would expose any cracks. Never a hitch, never a reason to worry. By the time my main was back, the X Macro had quietly erased every doubt. I found myself reaching for it first, forgetting it was ever just a backup. Most pistols flinch under a sudden promotion. This one just kept working until I couldn't call it backup anymore. Anyone who claims they've never had a reliable gun fail is either lying or hasn't shot enough to matter. Every story online is just noise until you're standing in the mud, staring at a dead trigger, no excuses left. I've been burned by guns that promised the world, humbled by sure things that folded the second things got ugly, and I'll tell you, trust is never final. Next year's Can't Miss is probably already halfway to the discount bin. So who's got the guts to admit what failed them? Or which ugly little underdog actually saved their hide when all the favorites quit? Drop it below and don't sugarcoat a damn thing. Comfort is a setup. Every safe bet gets exposed sooner or later. And next time, I'm coming for the sacred cows, maybe even the ones I'm still clinging to. I'm Steve. Stick around, keep your ammo dry, and don't let trust put you to sleep. I'll be back.